L is a lesson. So when I run into rejection, I know it's only redirection. I see the blessings right beside me. The chances of quitting are likely. I do it like I'm in my Nikes. Don't make excuses, they never excite me. Boxes, boxes. I cannot fit in the boxes. Stop it, stop it. Quitting was never an option. Exhausted, exhausted. This passion is never exhausted. And you cannot stop it. Nah, you cannot stop it.
Good morning, Knicks universe. Welcome back to another episode of the Knicks Morning Brew on this Wednesday, November 22nd. Like always, I'm your guy Hector, joined by my compadres, Mr. Phil. I always forget to unmute my mic, Porto, my guy Jerry Ferrara, and the one and only Jiggaman, Porto. Fellas, what's good?
How's it going?
Yeah. I'm here, and I have, as the intro's going on, I have my mouse hovered over the unmute button. So that it can happen again. And how do you intro me as the guy who does not know how to unmute his mic?
That's messed up.
It's love, Phil. It's love. I apologize. Sorry. I'm just a bit hungry right now. It's the day before Turkey Day, and I'm starving for some turkey and some arroz con gandules.
Very nice.
Quick question. Am I seeing things, or was the final score in the Pacers-Hawks game 157 to 152 last night?
It was.
Defense was not a thing. Like it was great to watch because it was seriously like a game of ping pong. Like you just watch the ball go, whoop, score, 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 score. It was awesome. It was hilarious.
I was gone a little bit last night, so I didn't catch up with everything that happened in the NBA. And I saw obviously like Obi had a good game. Of course, this is a Knicks show, but what the? I was like, oh, that's got to be a triple overtime game, right? No,
Nope, not at all.
I don't want that NBA. I know offense is good. We love watching it, and same thing with football. I don't want the 157 to 154. NBA, unless the Knicks got 157, then I'll take it.
I'll take it. Yeah, even JJ in the chat said defense was optional. Like, you look at that score, that's obviously what it was. What up, Jerry? How you feeling, bro?
I'm feeling good. I don't know if you're talking about me personally or me as a Knicks fan. Personally, I'm feeling good. Making some moves to get back in shape before I eat my face off this whole holiday season. Knicks fan, I also feel pretty good about the Knicks, even though coming off a tough loss after a little mini win streak. I have some thoughts on it. I know we'll get to it, but yeah, that was a tough one.
Well, I also want to say happy anniversary to you, bro, because it's the Ron Artest year.
Listen, everybody know what we're talking about? Does everybody know what we're talking about in here in the chat?
Yeah, for those that don't, every year the same clip comes out November 19th, right?
I think it's November 19th or November 18th or something.
Yeah, I think it's the 19th. It's like Bonita Day for Jerry, where every year the same video comes out of the turtle lookalike versus Ron Artest.
And that was so long ago. This was pre-social media. So that's not even the thing that happened on social media. The anchors at Sports Center were actually, and it might have been like Trey Wingo or one of the Sports Center anchors were the first ones to say that back in like 2004. And oddly enough, you know who started following me that day? Ron Artest. As of like 4 days ago. So him and I have been talking, and I might be out in LA in a couple of weeks at his charity golf tournament, and we might make a little video or a picture. But, I feel bad because I'm like, shit, now that guy's following me. I'm sure he doesn't want to see that every single year. It's not his finest moment, but I think he's in a good place. And props to Meta, Ron Artest, for just, putting his whole mental health out there for the public and his struggles and his wins, like in his road back. I just think it's very, very important, his story, not just the malice in the palace.
Yeah. No, 100%, Jerry. And if you guys haven't seen that documentary, I think Netflix put it out about the malice in the palace. Yeah. Go make sure you guys go watch it because it goes beyond the curtain to see things that us fans didn't see back when that happened. I was in high school. I remember actually watching that game because it was a nationally televised game when it happened. So there's a lot of things that went on behind the scenes that as you get older and you realize you're like, oh crap, wow, those guys literally took a lot of unjust jabs at those players, right? When it comes to Jermaine O'Neal as well, the NBA, that All-Star game when he came back, he was one of the top leading vote getters, and they had no pictures, no promotion, no advertising for Jermaine O'Neal, and his career went downwards. He was at the top peak, but listen, it is what it is. But make sure you guys go watch that documentary.
Yeah, and I always say the last two things, and let's move on. I always say, look, I know it's a joke what we say, but neither me or the character would both. Like, I don't have many talents in my life. The one talent I have, we can go anywhere in the world. I can tell you when a fight's about to happen. I just feel it. I see it. You call it street smart, you call it whatever. I would have saw that shit coming from a mile away. Whoever I was with, I would have been like, yo, we're going. Let's go. Grab your stuff. Let's go. Now, go. I just wouldn't have been there. Or the character of Turtle wouldn't have been there.
Yeah,
and
that made me laugh.
If I couldn't get out and Ron Artest walked up with me, I'd be like, how you doing, sir? Just so you know, I'm with you. Point to I'll go hit a fan. Point to who you want me to take out. I'm not messing with you.
Yeah, when you retweeted it the other day, it had me dying because you were like, neither I nor Turtle would have been in that situation. You'd be like, hey, want some tequila?
It wouldn't happen. I would just be, I'm telling you, my nose tingles. I just could see when the shit's going to happen, and I'm just, time to go.
Bro, it's because you're from Brooklyn, bro. Us, we were born in Brooklyn. We can sense that. It's like our spidey sense. We know when things are about to hit the fan, bro.
Oh, shit, it's coming.
Not even it's time. Yeah. You can even ask my wife the few times we've been out in clubs or whatever. I'll be like, grab your bag. It's time to go. These two beat the shit out of each other. And like, I'm telling you, grab your stuff. She's like, why? Nothing's happening. And sure enough, boom, to that, and I'm like, hey, we could have been in the car already.
Last thing on the Ron Artest one, do you remember that it's coming the next morning, or is it like your phone goes off? You're like, oh shit, it's that day.
I don't ever remember.
Yeah.
And last year when I reposted it in my phone, it got like 15 million views and stuff, and then. Yeah, I was like late on it. I didn't even know. And I woke up, I look at the timeline. I'm like, oh, it's that. And it's my official, Mariah Carey's the queen of Christmas, right? She welcomes us in. But for me, this rings in the holiday season now. Like when I see that clip, it's like, oh, Thanksgiving soon.
Here's the good news, though, Jerry. Now X is paying for great tweets like that. You should get the bag for having that thing hit.
Well, you know what? I'll let you know. I'll let you know if because right now my little post of that has like 7 million views and stuff like that. So I'll let you know if it actually equals dollars. I doubt it, but anyway.
Well, before we do the roll call, I know we wanted to shout out. Knicks family member. If you want to take it away, Heck.
I want to shout out our friend Jay Boogie, the closer. He's dealing with something horrible right now. I'm not going to get into exactly what it is, but he had a passing in his family. So thoughts and prayers to our guy, our brother, Mr. Jay Boogie. Just know, Boogie, we are here for you. If you need anything, you can reach out to myself, to Phil, or to Celso. We will be right there for you, brother. Like I said, thoughts and prayers are with you and your family during these hard times. Folks in the chat, if you can, just throw the prayer emojis for our brother, Mr. Jay Boogie, into the chat. And salute to all you guys that showed up. We are at 1,730 subscribers, on our way to 2,000. We have been killing it recently. Let's keep on aiming and keep on going higher. And shout out to Theo Al Centron from WFAN this past Monday. Amazing guy. He's been promoting us on his Instagram, on his Twitter. It was a dope episode. Make sure if you guys missed out on that one, go and rewatch. Hit the rewatch button. But like Jerry said, there was a Knicks game that happened. Let's rip the Band-Aid off and let's talk about it.
It was brutal. 117-100. Let's start off with you, Phil. Synopsis of this game. What were you thinking watching this thing, man?
So for me, it's not that we lost this game, because if you look at it, they are a team that is surpassing everyone's thoughts of what they could be. Like last year, was the first real year that we had this Karl Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert situation. Anthony Towns wasn't fully healthy throughout it. So we didn't really get to see what was going to transpire with that team. We had our assumptions that it wasn't going to work, but then they came in this season and they were like, hey, you guys are all wrong. Everything is clicking. Jaden McDaniels is playing great. You have this going on. You have that going on. Things just started to fall into place for this team. And they are number one in the West. So it's not that we lost that game that bothers me. It's how we lost that game. You know, in our last episode, what we talked about was what do we think is going to happen? And I said, regardless of the fact that the Wizards and the Hornets were easier teams to beat, I think that the reason we win these games is because we have seen increase in ball movement and players playing for one another. We had 26 or 27 assists in that Charlotte game. So when we each gave our takes, I said, if we go back to being a 16, 17 assist team, we will lose to all the good teams. I said, if we stay in that 26, 27 that we've been in these last few games, then we will beat those teams. What happens? We lose and we have 16 assists. And that was my prediction. We go back to 16, 17. I said the exact number that we would lose. And that's what we lost. It was selfish basketball. We weren't really moving the ball like we had seen these last few games. And when you're going up against the team that is that good, you can't make it a one-person show. You have to make it team basketball if you're going to win. So I expected us to lose if we played that way, and we did. You know, so it doesn't matter the team that we lost to, it's how we lost. That's what bothered me.
Yeah, and before I throw it over to you, Jerry, everybody in the chat, we do have our boy Jonathan Macri coming on the show today, so we're definitely going to jump into it with him, so hang tight in there. If you haven't yet, make sure to smash the like button, hit the subscribe. Jerry, what are your thoughts coming off what Phil said and coming off that game?
Yeah, I thought it was a really important game early on. Again, it's so early, but, you know, like I said, we had a little mini streak and we beat a lot of teams that we just flat out should beat. So I thought this was going to be a real test. Minnesota's been playing really well, particularly at home, you know, undefeated at home, although it's early. So this would have been a good test. I just looked at that game as a whole by the end and just said, as of where we are right now in the season, both of these teams, the Wolves are significantly better right now. I'm not saying it's going to be the case come April or May. Who knows with injuries or if there's moves to make, but just as a team, better team. Not even saying they're better coach, they're just a better all-around team. They almost play a very similar style that we play, just better, and they're bigger. They are the biggest team. Like, their identity is they're probably the biggest team in the league. But again, for me, it always comes down to the three-point shooting too, right? Like, I know with Phil, I agree. The assist, it's not even, I mean, Minnesota had 30 assists. We had 16. That's terrible to get doubled up in assists. But then with the exception of RJ and Brunson, who were both 3 for 4 and 3 for 6 respectively, 9 for 38 from 3, that's never going to do it. Now, you can't just say we were ice cold. A lot of those threes were under duress. What's scary is Minnesota defensively looks on another level, and they had Jaden McDaniels for 5 minutes. And he went out with an ankle injury. So we didn't even arguably see their best perimeter defender. And for the entire first half, which we were in it at halftime, you know, it was a 1-point game or a 2-point game. Anthony Edwards was not playing well for the first half, but he was doing other things. This is what I keep saying about Randle and even RJ. Like, when you don't have it shooting, he still had 10 rebounds. He had 5 assists. He had 2 steals, you know. But then in the second half, too, he got in rhythm, and you could really see that next level he went to. So for the Knicks, poor shooting, a lot of hero ball, a lot of ISO ball. And and you just also went up against probably the best defensive team in the league. At least right now. Maybe that'll change come May, but right now, the best defensive team in the league at home.
And you called it last week, right? I mean, they're a fun team to watch. Like, anybody that sees this team and not playing the Knicks, if you just watch their games, they are fun to watch. And I saw somebody tweeted during the game, Heck, where I think I messaged you on it, where the guy said, man, is this the type of defense other teams see when they play us? Because their defense was stout that night, you know? But let's be real. In my opinion, guys, like, even in the first half, we were beating ourselves. We looked sloppy. Like, I always make the circus music joke, but there was a lot in that game that you could just muted the announcers, muted the sound effects. All you'd hear was the circus music. So we were all tweeting the same thing at halftime. Man, to only be down 1 after that first half, after that many missed shots, like after that ISO ball. But man, I was really impressed with the Wolves. I think they are legit. Somebody in the chat said as well. But again, it's early on, right? My question for you, Heck, and we'll go around the horn, is our favorite base guy, Doug B, on Twitter. He put a comment out that said, are the Knicks the dividing line between the good and bad teams in the NBA? Are they the marker of, here's the top tier threshold, here's the Knicks, and then here's the bottom? How do you feel about that?
Listen, when it comes to that, that's very interesting. Shout out to our guy Doug. He puts out great stuff. But I want to try to be realistic with the team and its expectations, right? Playing 3 games in 4 days in 3 different cities, that's tough for any team, no matter what team you are. Yes, we beat the Hornets. Yes, we beat the Wizards. It was going to be a tough job going against the Timberwolves. That first half of the game, we were close. It was competitive. We took the lead towards the end, and the Minnesota came back, took the lead at the end of the first half. But then that third quarter, Anthony Edwards went off. And there's not that many teams that could stop that man, Anthony Edwards, once he gets it going. We were tied with them or close with them in the first half when Anthony Edwards was having an off game. As soon as he turned it on, we had no answer for him. And then we reverted back to ISO ball. When we weren't knocking down any shots in that third quarter, we went heavy ISO ball, hero ball, like Jerry was talking about. And you're not going to win many games against a top defensive team like Minnesota. Credit to Minnesota, like Phil was talking about last year, that experiment with Gobert and Karl-Anthony Towns didn't work out. Karl-Anthony Towns only played about 50 games, so they weren't able to really see if that tandem would actually work. I got news for y'all. It seems like it's working this year. Yeah, when it comes to Karl-Anthony Towns being moved from the center position to a power forward, he has the body to contest with a lot of power forwards in the league. I thought he was going to be slow on his foot against Julius Randle, but he was right there with Julius Randle that entire game. And when it comes to our assists, like Phil said, we only had 16 assists. The games that we win, we are getting more than 20 assists per game on the games that we win. When we don't hit that 20 assist mark in a game, we have lost every one of those games. So when it comes down to it, we need to go back into team ball. Credit for RJ Barrett. He was 3 of 4. Jalen Brunson was 3 of 6. But I'm not sure what happened to Dante. He found out he wasn't starting, and he was like, "Oh, well, I don't care anymore. Let me go show you guys what Quentin Grimes is all about." So
did you guys see
that's
that?
My viewpoint for that.
Did you see that tweet, Jerry, where the person said, "Damn, I feel like the Monstars came at halftime and took over Anthony Edwards," because that third he came out, he made it very clear. Nah, that what you guys just contained me in that first half isn't happening again. And again, yes, we're a Knicks show, but we like ball. And watching that kid play, man, he's another one of those examples, Jerry, that you mentioned last week, where he's benefited from that offseason FIBA, where he benefited from that extra. I mean, the dude he's fun to watch, man.
No, yeah, you see the future, you know. People compare him a lot to Dwayne Wade, Kobe to a degree with just like his mentality, not necessarily his exact game. But yeah, he's going to be a problem for a long time. And sometimes you got to just tip your hat. That's a good team. You have to mark that as, hey, that's a benchmark. That's where we need to get to. And I do think at home, I can't wait for when Minnesota comes rolling into MSG, because then you see Anthony Edwards under the big lights and Towns and Gobert. And like I said, I think the Knicks have to hold at home. I think a home court advantage and being a good home team like Minnesota is right now is a big deal. I don't know if you have this queued up, and maybe we wait for Macri with this, but at some point, and I'm not trying to be like every other Knicks fan on Twitter who's killing this guy right now, which I don't agree with, we got to have a little Grimes conversation. And it could be a health thing.
You know what? We don't even have to like have writer rooms. You know, we just make it Macri
to come on.
We can, but, you know, that's definitely one of those conversations.
Let's wait for Macri.
Okay, yeah,
because there's still a few things that I want to talk about that Minnesota game. And it's to both of your guys' points that we were talking about.
You're always taking the fun out of things, Phil. You're always taking the fun out of things, bro.
Things need to be addressed, though. Can't leave things under the rug, okay? So the first is the one thing that we talk about all the time is efficiency. And if you look, assisting and playmaking lead to efficiency. So if you look at us, assists were low, and our field goal percentage was an absolute atrocious. 34.8% as a team from the ISO ball, lack of moving the ball, lack of playing together. Then you have a team that has 37 assists, and as a team, they're shooting 51%. So the numbers show that the efficiency comes from moving the ball and not playing selfishly. You know, Julius Randle's been playing really, really great selfless basketball. That game, it was, if Karl-Anthony Towns can do it, so can I. Well, no. Karl Anthony Towns was efficient. Like, Karl Anthony Towns was playing bully ball or shooting from the three because he was being efficient. If you look at his numbers, he shot 60% from the field, 66.7 from the three. Julius Randle tries to match that. He gets 37% and 16%. Like, there has to be a point where you go, okay, I'm not winning this back and forth battle of trying to prove, that I can do these things, and so that wasn't a good look. And to all the fans, listen, someone asked, does this mean we're going to go for Karl Anthony Towns? Do we want him? I still don't want him. However, all this talk about Karl Anthony Towns is soft. After that game, we kind of need to stop that. Like, we kind of need to dead that conversation. Like, he proved, we can't say, oh, he's soft compared to our guys, and then him come in and flex on our guys. Like, we can't have those conversations. So that's just what I wanted to talk about that game, because the teams looked completely different. It looked like night and day.
Okay. Also, I agree with you, Phil. Soft. I know the Ben Simmons kind of chokehold when he was on the ground. Not a lot of people make fun of him for that.
Yeah.
I know it's a thing, but also we need to drop this Karl Anthony Towns as someone the Knicks are going to get, because he is under contract and he doesn't appear to be disgruntled, and he's on a really good team right now. It's just not happening, So yeah, it's easy to talk about in the offseason when the Timberwolves sort of disappointed and there was some chatter out of there with the Gobert thing. Well, it looks like, to Hector's point too, they fixed it. At least for now, through 15, 20 games, they've fixed it. And I think Knicks fans need to dead all of this. Well, Cat, you ain't going to get Cat. It's not going to happen. We've seen it with Embiid too now. Everyone basically is saying that Maxey is the number one guard in the East. So they have their whole Batman Robin thing. So just focus on what we have and what we could add that's realistic. And I don't think Towns is anymore, because that team is good.
Yeah, and let's be honest. If you're the owners of Minnesota, if you're Alex Rodriguez and the brain trust that's over there, why would you trade Karl Anthony Towns when the team has gotten off to one of the best starts in franchise history? You're not trading one of your best players that you built your team around because of what? Rumors or whatever happened last year between him and Gobert in the locker room. You're not going to do that. They fixed it, like Jerry said, and you could just tell. Look at their record. They're one of the top teams that are in the West right now, if not in all of basketball. So if I am the GM, if I want to lose my job and get fired, I would trade Karl Anthony Towns. But if I want to keep my job and secure a long-term contract, I'm doing everything in my power to build around Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns, and make sure that chemistry actually works.
Yeah, can't argue that. I mean, can I ask a stupid question?
Sure.
Go ahead.
We're through...
No such thing as a stupid question.
No,
bro.
it might be stupid. It goes for the chat too, guys.
Stop talking about my friend like that. Okay.
8-6. If someone came up to him and say, "Hey, here's your schedule through 14 games. You guys can go 8-6." Would you have signed up for that? I mean, I know I would have. And I get it. Obviously, the conversation, if you really start digging, well, what teams are we beating, and are we competing against the big dogs? But with the schedule that we had, the amount of back-to-backs we had, I don't think it's warranted. Yes, we got beat by a team that is better than us right now. It's not a question, are they maybe bet? They are. We can sit there and say that. They are better than us right now. So am I crazy for being hey, on to the next? It's 8-6. It's been a rough road trip, but we still walked away, 4-1 over the last 5? 3 and I guess that's where I'm having a trouble looking at in a bad light when it comes to a loss like this. Yes, I wish we would have played better. Wish we would have seen more. But 8-6, I know I personally would have signed up for that in the beginning of the year.
Yeah. And this is the thing, though, is I think there's a fine balance of on to the next and learning from situations. We could just go on to the next and be but we won the last 3. It doesn't really matter, Or we can say, why were we not in contention with this team? What is the difference factors? Looking at the actual facts and be okay, statistically, when we move the ball, we play better. Statistically, when we, focus on, making sure that we're not trying to go tit for tat with another player and have a, back and forth rivalry, that works for some teams. last night with Halliburton and Trae Young, they just kept going back and forth. That's what it was, But that's not what we were seeing when it came to us and Minnesota. So we have to go, okay, what are those factors? And one thing AA brought up is we have to be realistic. Against the actual really tall teams, we do struggle. Like, one thing that they said off the bat is it's going to be a long night for Jalen Brunson because he's going to continue to have to adjust his shot to get over both Towns and, Gobert if he gets past McDaniels. That was on him, And luckily for him, at least, McDaniels wasn't in there the whole game. But you got three guys like that bring that length and that height. And you got Jalen Brunson, who's a great player, but is obviously small. That's going to cause issues down the road, especially if it was to be like a 7-game series. So looking at those things and paying attention to them.
Yeah,
we got a double A with a 499 super chat says, salute, fellas. Preach, Phil. I will be a pro all season. Problem all season. It's real. Yeah, we keep talking about the height thing. I know Jerry did it too. Mm-hmm. And then Jerry, what was your caveat about that last time? Okay, then give me some tall people. Who? Tell me what tall people, right?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that interview before we go.
I knew it. Look at the segue.
Yeah. I just before you do that, right? To your point, when you said that the team is 8-6 right now, I remember when I said 7-3 in the first 10 games, and people looked at me like I was stupid. Last year around this time, we were 9-9. Right now, we are 8-6. Easily could be 10-4. There's a couple of games that got away from us. Woulda, coulda, shoulda that we should have won. We didn't. I understand that. That's why we're 8-6. But like I said, we could easily be 10-4 if we would have won that second game against Cleveland, another game that's out there, the first game against Boston, opening night. So there's a lot of optimism for me as a Knicks fan, right? Looking at this team this season. But I'm with you, AA. We need some size. And with Quentin Grimes struggling, now it's a great time to see what's out there on the trade market, whether that's bringing someone off the bench to the starting unit or trading for a wing that could be in the starting lineup. So let's, if you want to key that up, so Porto.
We're talking wings, and then we'll throw it off with Jerry. But Scott Perry, I mean, he put it out there, right? He said it on the Michael K show. I think they need a player that can create some more offense off the dribble for himself and for his teammates, some size and some defensive versatility. Right. And then he really ended it with they should go after a wing. Jerry, did you get to see this? And what are your thoughts on it, bro?
I did see it. I did like what Scott Perry said too about, that would allow you to truly push RJ down to the 2, which would be a nice mismatch for him, because he would be a very big 2 guard. Yeah, I agree. I just, again, like I said, and Scott Perry would probably have a list of people that I'm not thinking of. I just don't know what player that fits the size with the playmaking and the defensive versatility that is available. There's a lot of those guys in the league, and I think they're recognized by their franchises that, hey, this is a valuable asset. I mean, if you want to talk about defensive player, like there's Alex Caruso, but he's not big. He's great defensively. He can hit some threes. He can't really play make, and he's not big. I have a guy who I like that I've talked about on playback that is available, but he does not solve the defensive issues, but he does solve at least getting his own shot and a little bit of the size. But I could save it. But this guy is available now. He's not what Scott Perry's talking about. But I feel like Phil has someone that he is thinking of. And
Phil, before you take it, I see that we got our boy Jonathan Macri backstage. Let me get a thumbs up. Make sure he's good to go. All right, there's that smile. All right, bro, we're gonna bring him up. Let me make sure I hit the right buttons because you guys know I be pressing the wrong buttons sometimes, looking like an idiot. Ladies and gentlemen, next film score the man himself, Jonathan Macri. What up, Macri?
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me on. It's great to be here. Love what you guys are doing. I wish I had the time to do a daily show like you do, but or a regular day, like weekday show like you do. But this is cool, man. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Macri.
And I'll say it now: the chemistry when I see you with Dex, man, and when you're on the new one with him, what? I'm like, I tune in every time. Appreciate you making time to hang out with us. You showed up right on time, man, because we're talking about the Scott Perry comments, the go get a wing, move RJ to the 2. So Phil, I'm gonna cut you first. I'm gonna let Macri give us his thoughts on it, and then we'll throw it back to Phil. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, I mean, so let me start with the RJ part, because I think the RJ position discussion since he came into the league has always been one that's kind of fascinated me, because he's a big wing, but he often doesn't have or doesn't show the qualities of that like a typical big wing in the league like shows, because he hasn't always figured out a way to use his size that effectively on offense, like drawing as many fouls. He's gotten a lot better with that. Certainly this year, I think I've liked how he's used his physicality. And then on defense, like I don't know, he doesn't. Again, I'm just using the same term. For me at least, he hasn't brought as much physicality on the defensive end as I would have liked. So you're like, all right, well, how can he translate what he does well most effectively to what position? The shooting part that he's brought this year, obviously, I think is the biggest component to the possibility of him playing the two. And then you're like, all right, so if you bring that, you have another. You're comfortable with the shooting at the two. Can he take advantage of theoretically smaller defenders? Because the whole reason you're moving him to the two, if you get a big wing, is because you have just putting more size on the floor. You're creating more matchup advantages for you. So then it's like, all right, well, what have we seen RJ do in the past that we feel like he'd be able to use that size to exploit smaller defenders? And I go back to the playoffs last year against the Cavs, where he was, I'm not going to say bullying like your Darius Garlands and Donovan Mitchells of the world, but he was taking advantage of that size against those matchups, which is something that you guys know playoffs are a different animal. Every possession matters. If you can get yourself a good possession, like you got to do it. So I'm cool with that. I'm just like, I heard you guys talking about it as I was coming on. Like, where's the big wing that they're going to go get that fits with everything else that they have? Because I think that's a tricky conversation.
Yeah. So to your points, one thing I love about what I've seen from RJ this year is that it's starting to answer some of those questions that you had, because looking at him now, it was harder for him to have the strength that it took to be that small forward, driving and actually finishing. Now we're starting to see driving and finishing. So move him to the two, and he's going to have an easier, job driving and finishing on shooting guards than he is the small forwards that he's currently driving and shooting on. Same thing with his mid game. His mid game has gotten better. So yeah, he was doing that to the smaller guards before. Could he do that to all small guards? Who knows? But now that he's actually developing a mid game against small forwards, I would bank on that ability to do it on a shooting guard. Same defensively. He's played better defense this year, leaps and bounds compared to last year. So now you put it onto a shooting guard, and I think it's going to be that same kind of thing with some of his strength.
And just briefly to hop in, I'm happy you brought up the defense, because I think if you're going to get if the whole impetus behind this is to go out and get a big wing, theoretically the big wing you're getting is the sort of positionally has the sort of defensive versatility where you can put them on whoever the opposing team's most threatening offensive player is. So whether that player is at the 1, the 2, or even the 3, either way, RJ is slotting down on the less threatening player, which is where he should be, because I think that's just more in line with his skill set. I don't want RJ defending the point of attack. I think it's a good call to say, like, I don't think you're losing anything on defense either.
Yeah, and what, even though I like Grimes, the assertiveness RJ has now with shooting the 3 is something that Grimes has not developed yet. So it's something that we have if we get a small forward who can shoot and defend. Now we have someone who could shoot, defend, plus an assertive RJ who can shoot the 3 or put it on the ground. So that opens things up. I know we were talking about players. For me, since last season, I've had this player in mind, and I think now that he's back and he's healthy, and where he's fallen in his team because they didn't know if he was going to come back healthy or anything like that, is Jonathan Isaac. Jonathan Isaac of the Orlando Magic
was not expecting that.
An elite defender. He can drive off the dribble. He can shoot the 3. There is not anybody in that 3 to 5 that he has not shown that he cannot block in the NBA. Like, you look at even this season, his blocks, he's got at least, I think, 2 or 3 pretty much in every game, and he's only playing 17, 16 minutes off the bench because Orlando had to get power forwards and small forwards thinking, hey, we don't know if this guy's going to come back or not. So now he's fallen to the bench. That could be something that he could come in, fit in perfectly with our starting lineup.
I love how everybody's eyes went up when Phil threw the name. I was like, huh?
I like Isaac a lot too. I didn't.
No, I've been a fan of him. I didn't have him on my bingo card this morning, so I lost. I lost the game right now, Phil. Sorry.
And here's the thing: everyone that I've ever said it to, they go, "But what about like PR relations and da 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 da?" Does he? And I'm like, listen, I don't care about anybody. Like, there's a ton of players whose PR, like, I don't agree with on both ends of the spectrum. I'm worried about, are they going to help us win games? That's what I'm worried about. You know, like, let's skip all that. Let's look at the actual player.
I think Isaac, in regard to his off the court stance, would be an easier sell in however many other NBA cities there are than New York, where it's a very informed fan base. And like, I don't know that we've quite had, I know Inez, what is his name now? Inez Freedom has kind of gone off the rails in recent years. But he wasn't that out with that stuff when he was here. And like, the team sucks, so nobody cared. But Isaac, like, putting that aside though, focusing on the player, the bigger issue for me is I know he's been healthy this year. I want to figure out how to shut this off. I know he's been healthy this year. His injury history is so checkered. And I would just always be leery about counting on a guy with that injury history as part of like my foundational core in my starting five. I think his role actually that he's playing in Orlando this year is perfect because he's coming off the bench. He's able to come off the bench and play a little small ball five. He's able to play with their starters. He's been playing more and more with both Franz and Paolo, which gives, I mean, you want to talk about a team that is just absolutely a defensive beast when he goes on the floor with those guys. And I think he plays off of other stars well. I don't know that Isaac is the level of shooter in terms of volume. Because, like, here's the thing with, and this is the complicating part. Whatever player we're talking about, and this is, I think, the most interesting part of the discussion for me, and I'm curious what you guys think. Jalen Brunson, RJ Barrett, and Julius Randle are three players who would like to operate inside of the arc. Like, they will shoot threes. But we know, I mean, we've seen it all season. Like, Julius Randle goes through periods where he's not comfortable firing away from three. I know he was 10th in the league in threes attempted last year. It's why their offense was as good as it was. But he would rather operate inside the arc. Jalen Brunson's been, if not the best three-point shooter in the league this year, he's up there. We know he wants to be inside the arc. RJ has been awesome from three. We know he wants to be inside the arc. So just having the value of a guy who is willing to catch and shoot and fire when ready at all times behind the arc. And I don't know that that's Isaac. Like, I trust him on defense, but just I feel like I want a guy in that other wing spot who is really, like, comfortable putting up 8, 9, 10 threes for 36 minutes, which is a lot. But that's why Grimes, in theory, makes perfect sense. It's just, I know he's kind of underwhelmed a little bit.
Yeah, if it all comes together. Jerry, I'm going to throw it to you, bro, because this has been
dying inside.
Your swan song for weeks is we need that perimeter shooting. So much so he was begging for the French baguette to be in the game. So, Jerry.
Yeah, like I totally agree with what Scott Perry said, and Scott Perry's forgotten more about basketball than I'll ever know. So I'm not disagreeing with what he said, but just as a fan watching this team for now 35 years, where we are right now, to me, the biggest glaring hole is shooting. I don't look at like size and say we're too small. When you play Minnesota, yeah, you're going to look pretty small. That's probably the biggest team in the league, position to position, with their best 8 or 9. I don't look at them like small. Yes, I would like RJ more at the 2, but for me, when, you know, Brunson's been fantastic from 3, Grimes has not. RJ's been pretty good from 3, Randle has not. Josh Hart has been okay, very reluctant to shoot, and continually shrinks the floor for guys who want to play below the 3-point line and get into the paint and mid-range. Not having to respect 3-point shooting is the antithesis to that. So to me, I look around, and first of all, we need to really look at the Wizards. We need to look at the Bulls. I like the Isaac call. I don't know if Orlando really wants to or needs to make a move. You got to start looking at the teams that might be getting out soon.
Yeah.
And I look at one guy I look at that I said it on the playback the other. Now, this is not the answer to what Scott Perry said. This doesn't help the RJ position thing. This would just help bolster the bench and the overall shooting is Gallinari. And I know that's a guy that the Wizards said they would be open to getting rid of. Again, I'm not saying this is the answer. We're going to the championship if we get Gallinari. I want shooting. To me, Buddy Hield and Seth Curry were the two guys in the offseason. I'm like, those are like two perfect players that could fit with what we have already if we're not making a big move. So, yeah, I just want shooting. I really think that the Knicks lack shooting. I love Josh Hart's game. I don't want to take him off the court by any stretch, but to pair him, and you're right, what you said, Jonathan, too. Like, if Grimes were a little more consistent and didn't get hurt, he is the actual answer. But also, he has one free throw this year. I'm not saying we need to get to the line, but it's just not there right now.
Yeah, he hasn't shown that aggressiveness that we've been waiting to see for him. Every offseason or every season or going into the season for the past couple of years, Tibbs has been telling us that Quentin Grimes is going to be a big factor on the team. He's going to take that next step. And we have been waiting for it, and it just hasn't happened. And it's no shade or no knock on Quentin Grimes. I don't think he's comfortable in the starting lineup with the guys that are in the starting lineup with him. It's a lot to ask for a kid that came from college as the number one and the number two option to take a step back. I know where he was drafted, but at the same time, he's never done that in his career. So I think it's kind of hard to ask him, just go be a set shooter, sit on the three-point line, and just knock down shots when they are available to you. And when it comes to Scott Perry, I'm just say this real quick. I throw it over to Macri. I have all the respect in the world for Scott Perry. Like Jerry says, he knows more about basketball than I do, right? But when Scott Perry makes those comments, you had the perfect opportunity to draft that guy. His name was Mikal Bridges, but you drafted Kevin Knox over him, Scott Perry. So like I said, the perfect player that Scott Perry was talking about, he's in Brooklyn. Scott Perry in the front office could have drafted him when he was over here. We didn't. We have eggs on our face. And now it just feels like salt in the wound when I hear Scott Perry talk about the prototypical player that we need.
If I agree with you that if you were to pinpoint the prototypical superstar player that you could just plop into this starting five and not miss a beat, I completely agree with you. It's Mikal Bridges. He's a guy that's already shown the ability to be successful without a ton of usage, and yet we saw in Brooklyn at the end of last year, not so much this year, he's struggling a little bit, that he could create in a pinch too if you need, which is it's always good to have. Just the only thing I'll add, and I love Gallinari. Gallinari is one of my favorite all-time Knicks. Whether it's him or kind of any other player you talk about that's not a definitive upgrade. I don't know where the rotation minutes are coming from right now. Now, that doesn't mean they couldn't be there at some point down the line, which speaks more to, I think, the tricky spot that the team is in at the present moment, because I'm still of the belief, and not everybody is of this belief, but I am of the belief, despite what Scott Perry said about, don't be careful what you wish for with disgruntled stars and this and that they're still going to be on the hunt for a big time star player. And when that trade, if and when that trade goes down, they're going to wind up including, multiple current rotation pieces in that trade. So it's like you do on one hand want to think about the day, okay, well, we may not be able to use this player now. We'll be able to use them when a rotation spot or two rotation spot opens up down the line. And as far as Gallo is concerned, I just say, again, he's kind of a little on the older side, and I don't know if he's really a viable backup, a stretch five at this point. But at some point, I wouldn't mind seeing them. I know this is off topic. I wouldn't mind seeing them have another look that they could go to with a true 5-out look, because they don't have that right now. And that's partially because their identity is so steeped in offensive rebounding and rim protection. Literally their entire foundation at both ends is on one end, it's offensive rebounding. You need a true 5 for that. And on the other end, it's rim protection with Hartenstein does a great job. And obviously Mitch, we know what Mitch does. So it's tough for them to ask them to eventually look for that. But I think that's a down the line problem for right now. I'll just say this on Grimes, then I'll toss it back to you guys, because I do think this is where we have to remember this is a third-year player. And it's not even I'll even go a step further. He missed essentially half his first year. He only played 40-something games in that first year. A handful of those games he wasn't even in the rotation. And then last season I thought was really good, really strong. And now we're talking about 11, 12 games, whatever it is this year that he's actually played. I'm happy to have patience with him. I'm not saying it's going to work out as well as everybody wants. I am a believer in this player because of his work ethic and the fact that he seems to have embraced what they want him to do. Again, it hasn't been perfect, but like he was before he went 0 for 6 in his first game back from that little injury, he was shooting 36% from deep. So it's not like he was stinking up the joint. He just, you know, it left you wanting a little bit more. I'm okay to have patience with Grimes for a while before we start, you know, putting him out of the starting five.
Yeah,
that's fair.
You know,
I'll ask you, but I saw another name that's been floated around this week, just going across town there with Finney. What are you guys' thoughts on that? Because I'm seeing several articles already came out just in the last 2 days.
That's not. I don't think a Knicks Nets transaction.
Yeah, I don't see it being even optional. But is that the type of guy that you guys would also sign up for? Like, do you see that fitting? His 3-point and defense,
awesome,
right? Those are two things we're talking. He would kind of match that, right?
Yeah, but like you just said at the end of that, I don't see Brooklyn making a trade with the Knicks. That's never going to happen. For the same reasons why I said it makes no sense if you're the 76ers. Why would you trade Embiid 2.5 hours away to New York City where he's going to flourish? You're not going to do that. It just makes no sense. So if you're Brooklyn, you're not going to trade some guy a few train stops away to Madison Square Garden and see him do good on that stage. It just makes no sense to me.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that Dorian Finney-Smith, I think it was when I was on Smitty and Eddie this summer. And me and Smitty were talking about like players that we would want. And Dorian Finney-Smith is one of the ones I talked about, and Smitty completely agreed. But like Hector said, now he's in Brooklyn. Like, it's not going to happen. There's already this like underlying of like, hey, Brooklyn and the Knicks have this horrible taste in each other's mouth based off of the whole Durant, Kyrie Irving scenario that happened there and all the friction that's there. And New Yorkers pretty much been like, go back to Jersey. You're not a real New York team. You know, there's hip hop artists that's, you know, like have quotes like, you ain't from New York, you're a Nets fan. You know, there's that animosity. There's that hostility there, you know? And so you're not going to send a player, especially with the Nets kind of like still trying to figure it out. You're not going to send a player, like Hector said, a few train stops down that make us that much better, that solidify one more time that we are the real New York team. Like, you're just not going to do that. You're not going to do something that's going to make you look worse in your own environment. And I feel like Dorian Finney-Smith would add things that we need, and that's why they wouldn't do that deal with us.
I agree. I agree with everything you said. He is a perfect fit. The NBA Central Twitter account just tweeted out less than an hour ago, NBA catch and shoot leaders on threes. Dorian Finney-Smith is fourth in the league in catch and shoot threes after Markkanen, Strus, and Curry. And he's hitting catch and shoots at a 46% clip. Dude has length. Dude could defend, I would say, 1 through 3. You could probably stick him on some 4s, like true multi-positional defender, good point of attack defender. Like, in a perfect world, I think that's what Grimes grows into. Now, Grimes, I think, is not quite as long as DFS, which is like, and that's the thing with Grimes and why there was that little nagging part of me that like, do I believe in him as a starting 2 guard on like a title contending team? Is if he's your ace defender, right? You're always going to be wishing he was a couple inches taller, you know, which is just like, that's not his fault. That's just not something he could overcome. DFS gives you a little bit more length where you feel a little bit more comfortable on those matches. But you're right. That trade is never going to happen, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well,
and I don't even think
Jay.
necessarily, you know, we all, most Knicks fans, we panic so quickly after a loss. It's like, if you really look at the trajectory of the team, of course, we all want more. We all want to get back to the second round, get to the Eastern Conference Finals. Like, there really does not have to be a move. And that's something I credit the front office and what they've been doing, where it's more about, let's not make the tragic mistake that sets us back 2 years. We're on a great timeline. Our timeline just happens to be not right now. But I do think the bet is guys taking the step. And if we get this version of RJ for most of the season, we will be better than we were last year. We will be a tougher out if we get back to the second round. Same thing. Now we're waiting on Grimes. I don't know. I'm with you too, Jonathan. It's like, I love Grimes. It's frustrating sometimes to see him just on the 3-point line, because I think he could do a little more with the ball. But as far as the trigger that he has, I think he's got one of the quickest triggers after like Klay Thompson and a few other guys. His catch and release is top of the line. So if he just gets hot and consistent making those shots, that's the exact kind of player I know the Knicks need to open up that mid-range game for our ISO guys.
Yeah. And they're in a great spot because of what you just said. Like, they're not, it's not like quite playing with house money like OKC this year. I mean, you want to talk about playing with house money, like that's all gravy, whatever they accomplish. They're a year ahead of schedule. The Knicks, like, they do need to do well. They do need to continue the momentum, building the momentum that they started last year once Brunson arrived. Like, they, if they finished like 7th and like lost the play-in and then won the second play-in and then like got beat in 5 or 6 games in the first round by a top seed, like that would not be a good look. That would be worrisome, and it would make the franchise, I think, a little bit less appealing for whatever star they're going to go out and try to trade for this summer. So like, but at the same time, this is not a championship or bust season. So like, you don't need to make a move that is a bad move. And like, I know this is probably not like a hot, I don't know, hot take, but like not a take that's going to get a lot of like traction, but like, I'm not sure I see an obvious move for them to make. There's no trade that I see that makes sense, because you have to look at it from all perspectives. It makes sense for them, and it's going to make sense for whatever team that they're trading with. Given where they're at right now, maybe one emerges, but I don't see it right now.
Yeah, and that goes to what you're saying, right, Jerry? Where we have a timeline, but this is a part of the timeline where it might be best to stand pat because there's nothing that really matches everything all around.
It's so clear, to Jonathan's point too, if it was like a win or bust sort of thing, we really should have made the Donovan Mitchell move then. Like if we were that adamant about we need to start getting to the Eastern Conference Finals and being in the conversation. And why I wanted Donovan Mitchell, I love his game, but why I loved the not getting him was because probably next summer around this time when he has 1 year left on his deal, the Cavs are going to have to take a real long, hard look at how they're going to play that situation. And the only thing that could probably keep him in Cleveland is them going to the finals and making some real noise. So not even saying that Mitchell's the answer to all this, but if that's part of the plans, I love that it's hey, we'll sign you when you're a free agent. We're not going to give up 4 picks quickly, grind, and then basically gut the roster to bring you in.
Because the original offer was like Mitch Robinson and everything, right? Wasn't that like
who knows what the actual offers were?
There was a bunch of them that was out there.
There was an after the fact rumored demand/offer that came out, which involved RJ and Mitch and I think Obi and a bunch of firsts. But I've spoken to a few people about that. I mean that came from Woj, so like obviously Woj is he doesn't get anything wrong. I'm not gonna God knows I'm not in a position to question Adrian Wojnarowski, but like I've asked other people about that who cover the sport, and that didn't add up as much for them as well.
Same.
So I think we know what the ultimate offer was. The ultimate offer was RJ, and it was definitely 2 unprotected firsts and however many protected firsts, and then they were going back and forth on, well, is it Grimes, or if it's not Grimes, then it's Quickly. But if it's Quickly, then we need the 3rd first. And is it a 3rd unprotected first, or is it light protections? Well, if it's is it the Milwaukee? Like that's where you got into the minutia, where I think the reporting finally got fuzzy, and like smart people have said, like you never know what you could trust, because there's like everybody's giving their own versions, and especially when you have a Knicks front office where there's 18 different people picking up the phone and making calls. Like who knows what the actual reality was. I think the point is that like they were very in on that, and they almost did it. And my biggest question, I think this is the more interesting discussion. Let's say they go through this year and they don't make a big trade and they have a perfectly fine year and they get to the second round and like do whatever they're going to do. And to the point made before about Philly's not trading Embiid here. Let's say Philly has a nice year. Let's say they go into the playoffs. Let's say they make it to the conference finals, and Embiid feels good about the direction of the franchise. He doesn't ask out, so obviously they're not going to trade him. what do you do then? Because again, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything. You could sit tight for another year. The money gets harder to manage. You're creeping up towards that second apron, which is not going to be fun. But you can sit tight. Do you do that, or do you make a move? Like, do you revisit the Donovan thing? Do you go kick the tires in Minnesota and like the cat thing, which I have my own opinions about? Or do you go like kick the tires on something else somewhere else around the league for an imperfect move? To me, that's already the question that is fascinating to me, because I think this year is kind of, we already know what this year is going to be and how it's going to play itself out. But
yeah. So for me, I think that it's kind of a middle ground. I don't believe it's an either or thing. I don't think that right now is the blow it up, try to pull out and like find a big fish.
Yeah, they're not blowing it up.
Yeah. But I mean, like, don't rob ourselves to try and grab a big fish that, right now doesn't need to come here, but I also don't think that sitting completely still all season is the way to go either. Because for me personally, I see this is the first time in a long time where coaches, media, everyone's saying, okay, New York is starting to become a place that people are going to want to play. Like, after how long are we finally hearing that this could be a good spot? So what I don't want to see is come trade deadline and all these other teams that are within arm's reach actually making moves to make their roster better for the playoffs and for the rest of the season. We don't do anything and we fall behind and we don't get to where we were last year. Like, I don't want to take steps back when it comes to how all-stars and stars see New York right now as a destination they would want to go. And it'd be like, oh, that was a fluke season. Now they're back to being a play-in team.
Can I ask you a follow-up question?
So I don't. Yeah.
I want to ask you a follow-up to that, because I don't have the answer to this, but I'm curious what you think. Let's say that there's a move that they can make this season, which would make them better. Not a superstar move, but a move that will make them better. The name I always go back to, and he's going to cost something close to what a star would cost. So maybe this is not a fair question to ask, but like OG Anunoby. We're constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop in Toronto. Like, I think they're 6-8 right now. They did not look good last night against Orlando. They've had struggles, but they also look okay at times. Whatever. Neither here nor there. Let's say Masai finally relents and puts OG on the table, right? You could argue that he makes the Knicks a lot better. And you don't have to argue this, because I know it's true. There will be so many teams out there after him, including the Sixers, who you want to talk about a perfect fit for what Philadelphia is building. And then several other teams who hell, Indiana. How good would OG Anunoby look in Indiana? You put him in place of Obi, you could put him next to Obi. Like, I'm probably missing another team or two where he would fit in perfectly.
He's the most plug-and-play guy in the league, probably. You can put him on any roster, and they're instantly better.
Yeah, I don't have to talk him up because he's so good. But, like, okay, so let's say you make that move, but it significantly weakens your prospective package for the bigger fish down the line. Yeah. Phil, do you want to make that move? Are you making it or not?
So here's the thing is, I don't live in a dream world, and so with everything that's happening right now with the Knicks and their front office, like, I personally
that ready real quick.
Segue. You guys you make it easy.
Everything that's going on, I feel like a Knicks package for Anunoby is going to be significantly larger than anybody else's trade package for Anunoby. Like, I feel like with all the tension that's already there, I don't see them with kid gloves for us. I feel like it's going to be, okay, reasonable for everybody else, but for the Knicks,
it would cost them a lot.
Let's hit them where it hurts. So for me, that to me is still like a star kind of trade because of what they're going to ask from the Knicks.
Very fair.
So I would look at something that is a little more, plug and play right now to at least get us to where we were last year in the playoffs, like an assertive spot there or someone off the bench. Because listen, I like Josh Hart, but yes, it's a small sample size, but I don't think there's one game that someone can tell me this is why Josh Hart fits as a backup power forward this season. Like, I have not seen a game where I am sold on the idea that he is our backup power forward. Like, I'm just not.
I think he does a lot of things that maybe go unnoticed at times. I mean, I do think it's notable. They are the best defensive rebounding team in the league, which is not a small accomplishment. It's a big part of why they've been able to be successful on defense. And like, he's their backup four. He rebounds his position very well. I thought his defense has been fine this year. He's hesitant to shoot. Okay, he hasn't finished great, but I think Josh Hart, someone I work with at Knicks Film School, Benji Rithold, says this all the time. Like, Josh Hart is a classic diminishing returns player, where it's like, if you're playing him 20, 25 minutes a night, you're going to love him. If you're playing him 30, 35 minutes a night, you're going to start to see the seams, and you're going to start to pay more attention to the things that he doesn't do or he can't do.
Yeah.
So for me, 20, 25 minutes a night of Josh Hart is fine. It's also been a little tricky because RJ's been out and the Grimes is out. So you haven't had your usual lineups. I mean, they just signed the guy to an extension. They literally can't trade him this year. He's going to be a big part of the rotation moving forward. I just to me, if you're making a move that impacts this season's rotation, like you're not. I don't think you're trading DiVincenzo. You just got him. I think he's been good. I don't want to move Emmanuel quickly. So, like, are you moving Quinn?
I'd keep Josh at the
Does
3.
it not work if it's going after that backup 4, which resets both the starting lineup and the backup? Because now you could play Hart where he's properly meant to play. Like, I'm kind of with Phil, like the 4 thing. Like, when he was next to Obi or Randle, it's a different situation. I was at a lot of those playoff games last year. It's different also when he's not having. I mean, he's a great rebounding guard / forward. But it's a little different when he's rebounding from the 4 and then getting out on the break from way down under the basket, whereas he might have been a little bit more in the paint. And I think, like, no, we're talking about, like, if you look at the 2 positions, it's the wing with the starting lineup and the 4 with the backup. I think we have DiVincenzo, Hart, and if those are our wings and not necessarily one of them is our power forward, if you do answer a little bit of a sizable scorer to play 18 minutes, 20 minutes a game, tops, not even, because they got Randle, I think that could reshuffle the deck. So you could go with Grimes. If Grimes is struggling, you could put DiVincenzo in the starting lineup. Hart could then still cause I just thought he came in and caused havoc last year with the second unit. And I think he's playing really well this year, too. I don't have any problems with Josh Hart, and I'm glad they signed him. I just feel like he's a little out of position right now.
Yeah.
Either that or he's tired too, because
tired because he's a Tibbs guy. Tibbs loves him. Yeah.
And he talked before the season about how he's like, I don't know how the hell LeBron James does this every summer, where it's like, okay, deep playoff run, Olympics. You throw in the fact that he just had, I think he had twins,
and they love wine too. He's one of the wine guys in the NBA.
So like, he's a guy that is like, to me, I look at a guy. It's like he's missing. He came here with a jetpack attached to his back last year.
Yes,
and it's like he hasn't gotten that jetpack back this season. I don't worry about him. I agree with you. Ideally, you do want him at more of a wing as opposed to a backup 4. My bigger question about, okay, if you bring someone in without sending somebody else out, where are the minutes coming from? Because right now you're kind of stretched thin when everybody's healthy as it is. Like, you already had games this season when everybody was healthy where you had, like, DiVincenzo playing 16, 17 minutes or Grimes playing in the low 20s. Like, even so, you're talking about a guy, okay, let's say it's a backup 4 who plays 16 minutes a game, okay? Then you're probably taking RJ out to accommodate that player. You're taking RJ out of the backup 5, right? Then that sends a lot of creation responsibility on Emmanuel Quickly's shoulders. At least right now, it's Quick and RJ that get to share those backup creation responsibilities for, even if it's 3-4 minutes at the start of the second quarter and then another 2-3, maybe 4 minutes at the start of the fourth. But like, those are important stretches of the game, and that backup unit has been more or less a strength this year. I want to keep it a strength. So if you're bringing somebody else in, even putting aside the minutes thing, can that person that you're bringing in again to play backup 4 give you enough of what you'd be losing from RJ as to really initiate the offense? And again, those players are hard to find, who have those sorts of skills and abilities. But maybe someone's out there. I don't know.
For me, right, I'm sorry. For me, Nick P brings up a name in the chat. It's someone I wanted to talk about. Jeremiah Grant has always, and Jerry knows, one of the guys that I've been clamoring for But when it comes to Jeremiah Grant, his contract is what I'm scared of. He's making about like $27 million a year. If we were to trade for him, say like if we include Fournier, Quentin Grimes, that's $21 million. We still got to make up $6 million to make the trade even match. But when you look at his contract on his last year on his deal, it's a player option for a 5th year. He's going to be making about like $33-34 million. And that's when Jalen Brunson potentially becomes a free agent. So if we were to go after someone like Jeremiah Grant, he may make it hard for us to re-sign Jalen Brunson when the time comes when we need to sign Jalen Brunson. So when you look at all these names that are out there, it's not that many names that are just makes all the sense of the world. Brandon Ingram, it's a guy that I like as well. But BI, if you look at it over the past 3 seasons, every year the games that he has played has gotten less and less and less. He's been healthy so far this season, but when it comes to his track record and his injuries, I just get scared with that. Same thing for Grant as well. Grant has been dealing with injuries over the past few years as well. So when you just throw out the names, it's just not that many guys that just make sense. DeMar DeRozan is a guy that I think is a veteran, that he's an offensive first. He is around league average when it comes to defense. He is on the last year of his contract. So if we were to trade for someone like DeRozan in the offseason that comes up this year, he may sign for less than what he actually got over the past 4 years. He may not demand a big contract extension during the offseason. So trying to throw names on the wall, the only one that makes sense to me is DeRozan. You move RJ back to the 2 spot. DeRozan is your starting small forward. When it comes to Josh Hart, as a backup power forward, not in love with the idea, but as a backup small forward, I do like the idea. So there is someone out there that we should go get to be that backup power forward, so you can move Josh Hart back to the small forward for the points that Jerry mentioned.
Only thing with DeRozan I'll say is he's another guy really wants to operate inside the arc. So if you're swapping out the Grimes spot for DeRozan, you're taking a team that already can look a little, clogged toilet offense at times, and making it even more, but he's super talented. And then last thing I'll say, and then I got to get out of here, in regards to like the money you're bringing up, like how much Jeremy Grant costs and how much other players cost. Assuming Quickly doesn't go out and whatever fake trade you want to come up with, that's another $20 to $25 million annually you're adding to your payroll next year. Now, again, they're never going to be – free agency is dead in the NBA. It doesn't exist anymore. But you do need to worry about this with this new collective bargaining agreement, having – once you go over what they call this second apron, which is a certain amount that they're not quite as far away from as you might think, and are definitely going to start flirting with, if they retain Quickly, give him a new contract, and then bring in another high salary player by using the Fournier outgoing money. That really restricts your ability to what you're able to do as far as team building. So I think you're going to start to see moving forward, and you've already started to see, there will be teams that exceed that second salary cap apron, but those will be teams that already have their, what they believe is a title-ready, title-contending core in place, where they don't need to worry about making another big move. The Knicks are not there yet. So I think you're going to have to continue to be cognizant of them, yes, being aggressive, trying to get better, the whole thing, but also maintaining just enough flexibility where they're not hamstringing themselves, where they can't continue to improve the team after they make, whatever move we're talking about. On that note, I got to jet, guys, but this was awesome. I had a lot of fun.
Of course.
Yeah,
Definitely,
appreciate
John.
you making
Happy
time
Thanksgiving.
man. Have a great
Happy Thanksgiving to you guys too. Don't let the tryptophan kick you in the ass too much, right?
Appreciate you, bro. We'll lock up soon, man.
Later,
Take
man.
care.
Be well.
Later.
Great convo, guys. So look, obviously we're going a little over. Appreciate Macri coming through. Guys, we all know when you start talking about trades and players, this conversation go on forever. But I'm pretty sure everybody got some food to make. We got shit to talk about. So let's go around the horn real quick. I'll throw it to Jerry, then Heck, wrap it up with Phil. But we do have a game after Thanksgiving. We'll all be full. We'll all be ready to go watch a little bit of the Knicks Heat. And by the way, we get to premiere the ugly orange. The orange court for the in-season tournament. I'll start with you, Jerry. How we feel about this, bro?
I think it's another good test. early in the season. It's a little bit of a mislead because the Heat, even though the Heat have been playing really, really well, went on a nice winning streak. The Heat aren't going to take proper form till probably April. But either way, Orange Court's out. This will be a great one. The food would taste a little better the next day to go 9-5. I just think it's a very important game. Also for the in-season, it is important because I think this would put us at 2-1 with one left against the Bucks, and 3 pretty much will get you in most likely. So, it would be nice to win this game and then go into that Bucks game having it really mean a lot. And I like us bouncing back with a little bit of rest. The question is like, how much did we eat the night before? Because they're back. It's a home game. They're going to be home for Thanksgiving. I'd say maybe go light on the mashed potatoes, fellas.
Yeah. Don't come out dragging ass off.
Right.
Game.
Yeah. No, definitely. For me, it's a rematch from the playoffs last year. Knicks versus Heat. It's a bitter rivalry that's been going on for some years. So it's nice to have that rematch back in the Garden. Like you said, in-season tournament. I'm getting my protective glasses. I'm not trying to catch like any Caesars, anything just from watching the game. But no, like Jerry said, hopefully they don't eat that much, or if they're smart, they would celebrate Thanksgiving on a Wednesday, have Thursday to go out with the family to rest that food and be ready to come back on Friday. I'm just saying, just throwing some things out there.
He's not only a content creator, he's also your health advisor. Knicks, how you doing?
Health advisor. Just wanted to take a pause. Everybody that's out there, drink your water. Make sure you're drinking your water. Make sure you're staying hydrated. I got the big jug right here. Jerry actually has some coquito and his over there having to deal with all the Christmas music that's playing in the background. So I'm praying for you, bro.
Appreciate that.
All right. So for me, like Jerry said, the Heat started off a little bit rocky and then all of a sudden turned it on, and so for me, it's one of those teams that if we don't move the ball, we're going to lose once again. They are a team that has their stars. However, they know how to share the ball. Like their last game, they had, I think, 31 assists, as a team, where Jimmy Butler's still 8, Bam Adebayo still 8, Duncan Robinson still 8, but they moved the ball to all their players, so they're averaging more assists. Winning teams can have stars, can have great players, but they still have assists. And so if we once again go back to 16-17 and we try to go tick for tack point-wise with them, I don't think we're going to be able to win. This is a team that, we talk about having continuity. They have continuity too, like Duncan Robinson and, Jimmy Butler and Bam and Kevin Love and Caleb Martin. These guys have been playing together, Kyle Lowry. So that thing that we use as something that's a strength, they have that strength as well. They also have heat culture, which is a real thing. So I think in order to beat these guys, we need to play as a team. We need to use our actual strength. We need to not be lackadaisical on defense. Like if it's one of those throw your hands up when your defender, beats you in something, or you feel like you got fouled and you don't want to chase them back down at the other way, we're going to get beat. So I hope that we show up as an actual team, because I feel like as a team, we can beat these Miami Heat, the roster. But I feel like if we play individually, there's no way we're going to beat them.
Facts. All right, so before we wrap it up, this Friday, guys, tune in for the Open Panel Friday Knicks Morning Brew. We got our boy Uncle Freezy of Lawrence Tears joining the panel. Appreciate everybody in the chat. My take and advice for this Friday's game, guys, obviously I want to win, but listen, control how much you drink, because the court will make you feel drunker than you are. So make sure you maintain it. Make sure your eyes adjust to the orange court beforehand. And Jerry, I love you, man. Appreciate you being here every Wednesday with us. Macri, for showing up.
I'm going to pick up a turkey. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Last thing I want to say, shout out to New York basketball account. They posted one game that was like ridiculous. So 30 years ago today, John Starks, 7 threes in the first half, broke an NBA record, had his nose broken, and then came back in the second half to continue to play. So
bring that energy this Friday.
Let's go. Let's go. Like I said to start the show, much respect, prayers to Jay Boogie and his family for what you're going through at this time. My brother, I appreciate you. Shout out to everybody that was in the chat. So take us out, you handsome bastard.
Deuces!